The Ford EcoSport has been the torchbearer for the compact SUV segment in India ever since its launch way back in 2013. But with the arrival of the all-new Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza, is it time now for Ford to pass on this torch? We'll find out on the show today. Well, in terms of boot capacity, the EcoSport really does win this one without any problems at all. This one is 346 litres, which is almost 20 litres more than the Vitara Brezza. And how much is that? It's the size of a big water bottle. What also makes it easier to load is the fact that the sill is much lower than the one on the Vitara Brezza, which means you don't really have to put your back into it. And there's also a minimal lip, which means that you can easily pull out those big and heavy bags and also push them in without any problem at all. Well, but the one downside that this car has is that the boot lid opens sideways like a door, which means that if you have some car parked right next to it, then it'll be a little difficult to operate. Well, we've already seen that the Brezza is slightly behind the EcoSport in terms of overall luggage carrying capacity by roughly about 20 odd litres. Well, the other thing which puts this car slightly behind the EcoSport is the fact that the sill is really very high from the ground up. And what that means is that if you have a heavy object like a big 20 litre bottle to load over here, then you will have to put your back into it. I really need to start going to the gym. Well, so here I'm inside the Ford EcoSport, and if you are comparing both these cars side by side, you will immediately see that the dashboard on this car feels a little outdated now. Also, the plethora of buttons over here can be a little intimidating to use initially, but of course once you get the hang of it, it's quite okay. In terms of practicality, you get plenty of places to keep your odds and ends. You get this huge tray over here where you can keep your cell phone and wallet. You also get a couple of cup holders over here, and the door bins are large enough to house those big 1 litre bottles from your home. Well, in terms of overall seat comfort in isolation, the EcoSport is quite okay, but yes, again, compared with the Brezza, the seat scob isn't as wide or as long as the one on the Brezza, which means that taller passengers will be a little tired towards the end of the day. Talking about features, let's tell you about 3 cool things on this car. Well, the first thing is that this car comes with the option of not 1, not 2, but 6 airbags in the top of the line version. You get automatic headlamps as well as automatic wipers. Well, this car also comes with Ford's emergency call assist, which means that in case you are involved in an accident, then the system over here will automatically dial an emergency number for you, which will come out for your help. Well, even though the looks on the outside might be subjective and cause a lot of debate amongst friends, when it comes to interior quality as well as style, the Brezza clearly has the edge over the EcoSport. And why is that? Well, simply because the plastics in this car are much better in terms of quality. Also, you get this touchscreen over here, which adds to the feel-good factor of this car. In terms of overall practicality, it's a good place to be in. You get these 2 big glove boxes over here, and there's also a lot of places to keep your knickknacks as well as those big bottles. You of course get this small bottle load over here, and the big 1 litre bottles can easily be accommodated in the door bins. Well, another area where the Brezza has a slight advantage over the EcoSport is in overall seat comfort over here in the front. The seat scob is both very wide as well as long, which means that even taller passengers have plenty of under-thigh support, and the support for the lower back is very good. Let me tell you 3 cool things about the Vitara Brezza. Well, the first one is the fact that you can choose from 5 different colors for the backlight of the gauges. This car also gets Apple's CarPlay, which means that you can mirror the apps from your phone onto the screen over here. Well, you also get cruise control, which is great for those long highway trips. Well, so here I'm in the back seat of the Vitara Brezza, and just like the EcoSport, this one also does not have AC vents at the back. What Maruti has done is a very smart thing. They have raised the front seats, which means I have place below them where I can stretch my feet. Also, headroom is more than adequate, and knee room is quite good as well. Where the Brezza has the overall edge is in overall seat comfort, and that's because the cushioning on these seats is very good. Well, this car also feels slightly wider at the back, which means that if you have 3 average sized adults, or if you have 3 people who are roughly my height and my weight, then squeezing them over here should be a much more comfortable affair than it will be in the EcoSport.
Yeah, it's better than the EcoSport. Pretty good.
The EcoSport seats are pretty okay in terms of comfort. The backrest angle is pretty good as well, and headroom is just about okay. As I said, knee room is decent in isolation, but again, compared to the Brezza, it's slightly behind that car. Also, the raising waistline on the outside means that you get that hemmed-in feeling over here, which means that you might feel claustrophobic on those long journeys, unlike the Brezza, which has large windows. And also, it doesn't feel as wide as the Brezza, and we'll see if it is a better car at sitting 3 abreast for those long journeys by asking my colleagues to jump in now.
It's about average.
About average, yeah.
Well, so here I am driving the Ford EcoSport with the 1.5 litre diesel engine, and remember, this engine makes about 99 bhp of power, which is about 10 bhp more than the Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza. And as soon as you start driving off this one, you will realize that the engine is a lot more responsive than the one on the Brezza. It starts responding from roughly about 1500-1600 rpm, which is very good for a diesel motor. Also, the gearbox on this car feels a lot more crisper than the one on the Vitara Brezza, and feels a lot more sporty to operate as well. Well, another area where this car feels slightly better than the Brezza is in the overall handling. The chassis feels a little more dynamic than the one on the Brezza, and the steering wheel also feels a little more communicative. Well, in terms of overall highway stability, both these cars are neck and neck, and there's hardly anything to choose between them. And the suspension is very similar on both these cars, even for city use. Both these cars offer you a tight suspension, which means that some of the potholes as well as bumps will filter into the cabin. Well, in terms of refinement, both these cars are very close to each other. Well, the feelsome steering wheel, the very agile chassis, as well as the crisp gearbox certainly make the EcoSport a much better driver's car than the Vitara Brezza is. Here I am driving the Vitara Brezza, and remember, this car comes with a 1.3 litre diesel engine, and it's a slightly smaller engine when compared to the Ford EcoSport's 1.5 litre unit, and it's also lower on power because this one delivers about 89 bhp compared to the 99 bhp on the EcoSport. Well, the big difference is in power delivery, because remember, the Ford EcoSport starts responding from around 1600-1700 rpm or so, and this one responds only after about 1900 or 2000 rpm. Well, what that lazy power delivery essentially means is that you will have to use the gearbox very often to get it in the right power band, which is roughly about 2000 rpm to 4000 rpm. But that's not a big issue because the gearbox is quite crisp to operate, and the clutch is also much more lighter than the one on the Ford EcoSport. The other good point about the Brezza is that you get these huge and wide windows, which gives you a very airy feel inside the cabin. This cabin feels a lot more bigger than it already is. Also, the rear visibility on this car is better than the one on the EcoSport, which means that parking into tight spaces is a better affair on the Maruti Suzuki Vitara Brezza. The Brezza is pretty good, and it does feel stable as well as reassuring when you are on the highway doing 3-digit speeds. Well, in terms of braking, both these cars are neck and neck. Well, even though the Ford EcoSport is 10 bhp more powerful than the Vitara Brezza, it is the Brezza which is almost 100 kilos lighter, and what all that means is that there's hardly anything to choose between both of them in terms of outright performance. Well, so overall, the Ford EcoSport has the clear advantage when it comes to overall driving dynamics as well as safety. Remember, this car comes with the option of 6 airbags. Well, but that said, the Brezza has the clear advantage when it comes to overall cabin comfort as well as build quality, things which really matter to most buyers at this price point. Also, being a Maruti means that sales and after sales will not be an issue at all, and resale values will be very strong as well, which means that the Vitara Brezza is the winner of our battle today.